Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. It's Lune, and I hope you're well, and if you're not, I hope you're well soon. Um, Today I wanted to talk about kind of my journey a little bit to spirituality, to the understanding that I'm at in my own life personally, with the idea of God, source, consciousness, whatever you want to call it, a higher power. And I I grew up um, with one side of my family, very Catholic, very Catholic. And I was in a Catholic elementary school for a good 5 years, um, from first to fifth grade. And so I was around, you know, God, Bible, Jesus, the whole thing for years, around that time. And I'm gonna be honest, as a child, right, I didn't like it. I didn't like the rules and the structure of, because it was a private Catholic private school. Like, it was very religious. I was like, I don't like this. And I was fine learning about, all the stories from the Bible and my religion class, and like hearing about God and all these things, but there was always a part of me that was like, the way that this is set up just feels unnatural to me, right? So once I left the Catholic school and I went to public school, I was like, oh my gosh, I'm free. Nobody's telling me that I need to believe in God, you know? And so I was kind of atheist for a little bit, where I was just like, or maybe not necessarily atheist, but more so like, God could exist. God might not exist. I don't really know. I don't really care. That was like the vibe for me for a while. And then I and then I had what you would call a spiritual awakening in 2019. And I just kind of, I first saw tarot videos online and I was like, that looks cool, that looks pretty, that looks fun. So I just was watching them for fun. And that was really the extent of that for a while, until I want to say like the end of 2020 is when it really started hitting, and I was like, God exists. I didn't necessarily call God God in the traditional religious sense, but I was like, yeah, there's like some sort of higher power there that's like in my life doing something. And it was really interesting because I was into the esoteric stuff, you know, I don't know, like I wasn't necessarily witchy. I wasn't I honestly don't identify very much with like a witchy um way of life, but I also don't identify with like a super institutional religious type of vibe. I feel like, and that's kind of getting me to where I am now. I'm more like in the middle. I don't have like a specific religion that I could say is what I follow. I would say I have more Christian Catholic influences from a young age, but I don't necessarily follow everything that they teach, preach, or whatever. Um, so for me, my spiritual path, spiritual awareness is very fluid. It's more like I see something, it makes sense to me, I take it on. And I really love doing that. I guess that's just the way that I've become comfortable um being and seeing, because and I just feel that it's the best for me because I've always been someone who doesn't like rigid rules or structures. And I don't like following certain things or thinking or like having people tell me that I have to believe in something a certain way. I don't like that at all. I hate that. Um, and so I experienced the more extreme side of religion and religious stuff, where people were like, you have to follow this way, or, it's not right or good or whatever. You're sinning if you don't follow this scripture, this sacred text, the way that it says that you need to, or the way people decided you have to. And I didn't like that. So that's part of why I was like heck religion, bye. Like, it's why I became atheist for a while. Um, and then when I started to realize that it doesn't have to be a specific religion that you follow, that it can be more than that, and that I don't have to follow specific rules to learn the same lessons, that felt more comfortable for me. I understand people who they join a religion and that feels good to them. That specific understanding is what helps them along their path, and that's their path, and I think that's beautiful. I do. But I don't like the sides of religion when there are people of those religions who say they follow them, but they kind of go against what the point of the religion is. I don't like that as much. I think that is it kind of misconstrues and deviates from the point of religion, which is that we are love. We come from love. We come from a source energy, God, whatever you want to call it. That's what I believe. And however you come from God, go to God, like, it's very personal. I don't think that there is a specific way that you have to be to, you know, have that connection with God. You don't have to go to church to be connected to God, because from my perspective, we are always with God. We came from God. God never leaves us, never. And I also don't like to personify God very much. And yes, I'll call God God because that's the label for God that I'm comfortable using, or that I've used my whole life. But you can call God anything you really want, whatever resonates the most for you. Like, you could call it source energy, the universe. You could call it, anything from any other religion names they have for God. That's what you can do. And that's awesome. But for God, for me, is I call God God. But I don't like personifying God. I don't like thinking of God as a guy or a girl or anything of any gender, sex, anything. I just don't. I just like being like, that's God. you know? And that's what resonates with me. That's what makes sense to me. And I'm comfortable with that, and I like that, and it feels good, so why wouldn't I continue to do that? But in saying that, I don't like the personification of God as a person, because God, uh, as a being, right, is not like a human, doesn't operate from the limited space of a human being. So I feel that, and I'm not saying that it's wrong to personify God in some ways, because it helps us with human understanding. It's just that I don't like to define God by that. I like to see God as a source, an energy source, from which we all come and which we all go back to, and which we are all a part of, always, constantly, forever, all through time and space. There's never separation from God. We are just embodiments of God. Some people don't like saying that, thinking that when I say that we're of God, right? I'm not saying that, like, we are God, right? Like, no. I'm not saying that. I'm saying we are an expression of God. We are. God lives within us, within all of us, from my understanding, from my perspective. And so there's never any separateness, and I don't think you can ever lose God. I don't think you can ever truly stray from God, because you are God. Anyway, that's what I believe. That's what I believe. And personally, I like seeing religious scriptures and books and stuff. I think it's really interesting because a lot of them say a lot of similar things, that similar interpretations of what is considered God. So as you study those and you look at those, and honestly, I don't have a whole lot of experience other than with the Bible because of how I was raised, but from what I have read from the Bible, right, there are a lot of parts of it that I'm like, cool, makes sense, is good. And there are other parts of it where I'm like, I don't know, because when you really think about it, specific people wrote these books, and I mean, we don't actually know who they were personally. We never will. So it's hard to kind of judge like what it's like that was their truth, right? They expressed their truth through that book, or multiple truths were expressed through that specific text. And sometimes texts are changed throughout history and time. And something else to keep in mind when you read them is that the Bible specifically has different translations and reiterations. That is a real thing. Um, and not to say that that makes it wrong or like there's anything necessarily inherently wrong with it. It's more of to understand that people wrote these things. People, limited human beings. Maybe people that had a very special connection, in a very divine connection with God, but people nonetheless. So it's important to not take every single little thing written in a book or a scripture as the complete, utter truth, no matter what. It's reading and thinking about and reflecting on and integrating the parts of it that make sense to you from a soul perspective and soul level, from an intuitive standpoint. And that's kind of what I've done. I'd like to read more scripture, more text, and actually to read the Bible more deeply. But I don't quote scriptures or texts because it just feels unnatural to me at this point in my spiritual journal, spiritual journal, spiritual journey, um, spiritual embodiment right now at this point in time. So I'm just talking about how I see things, how I got here. And right now, my spirituality is a little bit, it's more free flowing, like I said. Um, I kind of just observe things, I take it in, and then I just decide what makes sense to me, what feels right to me. Just based on the embodiment that I am of God in this certain moment in time. And that's enough for me right now. So that's where I'm at with that. And yeah. That's kind of cool to talk about that. I hope you guys are having a good day so far, or night, afternoon, wherever you are. Yeah. And yeah, so let me know about your, spiritual, religious beliefs in the comment section because, I am curious to know, like, what you guys believe and what specific things you identify with because I am learning that really it's so unique to everyone. Everyone is down a certain path, a different unique path, and different religions or just spiritual concepts feel more correct and aligned with certain people than others. And that is what I've found to be the ultimate truth. So yeah. I hope you guys are well, and if you're not, I hope you're well soon. And bye. See you in the next one.